So I was 15 at the time. I was at school still when I played for the reserve team. I remember days when we'd lost on the Monday and we were cleaning boots, all the young lads cleaning boots, and we were having a laugh and a joke, and the manager effing and blinding us, telling us what we're laughing about because we'd lost at the weekend. I'd experienced pressure at Leicester to do well, and we did do well. So when it wasn't working at Sheffield Wednesday, it was something new to me.
Would you say Zola's the best player, ex-player, now manager that you've ever been coached by? Like, in terms of, has he still got it? Can he still whip one in?
Yeah, he did join in a little bit. Yeah, you could see, when he's talking about set pieces and that. Yeah, you could see he was obviously, an unbelievable player. Like, he kept himself in unbelievable condition. And as it happens, I've moved down to Reading. It's a very good club. Moving forward, like the facilities that they're building now, the training ground is unbelievable. That'll be ready in October, and the ground's brilliant. Unfortunately, can't have any fans in there at the moment. I want to play in the Championship for as long as I can and leave some sort of mark on the football club at Reading. And ultimately that would be getting promoted.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another, probably the fourth podcast YouTube series of How to Be a Football Coach. And today, very much look forward to guests on the show. I'll let him introduce himself. A lot of you probably know who he is already, but I'll let him introduce himself.
Hiya, how you doing? I'm Michael Morrison. Currently play at Reading. Played previously at Cambridge United, Leicester City, Charlton, Sheffield Wednesday, and Birmingham City. I've amassed over 500 league games now, so I've been around the block quite a bit.
Cambridge boy, aren't you, mate?
Yeah, I was from a little town called Haverhill, just outside Cambridge, born in Bury St Edmunds, and grew up around there. So to actually play for Cambridge, it was, is something special. A lot of friends and family that got season tickets or go and watch the game. It's our local team. There's obviously competition from Ipswich and Norwich, but it's a bit further away. So yeah, it was a proud moment for me to play at Cambridge and make my debut there.
I remember I've done my research the other day. Is it that you were one of the youngest players in the under-23s or something like that?
Yeah, well, back in the day, it was reserve team. So I was 15 at the time. I was at school still when I played for the reserve team. I'd actually done, after that, I went and did, you used to do work experience. I'm not sure if they do that now. And I asked to do 2 weeks work experience. So I did work experience at Cambridge United. And it was the first 2 weeks of pre-season. I didn't know that. So for the first 2 weeks, I'd asked to do work experience. Like, yeah, come along. And it was 2 weeks worth of running. And it was old school running back then. So it was running along the canal at Cambridge and round the pitch and until you were sick almost.
We'll talk about that to start then. Obviously, you're in your early 30s now, and I think some would say you are an experienced member, but like I said, over 500 appearances and a solid centre-back at that. Would you say, from obviously playing at such a young age, obviously, and the reserves at 15 and starting off very well, especially for your boyhood club, you should say, do you think not a lot of players will kind of work as hard at the younger ages as maybe it was, like you said, when you were there? Because you had the kind of old school pros and it was, like you said, just running. Do you think it's a lot harder then, or?
I think it's just different. Everybody's got different routes and stories how they made it into first teams all over the Football League and all over the world now with English players going abroad, and the game's changed, people have changed, the way that people are taught's changed and the way that they receive information's changed. So I mean, there's no way you can go about doing what you did 10, 15 years ago to now. It's not relatable when you look at the science behind some of the running exercises now and all the technology, and people are going to university to make sure athletes, which footballers are at their absolute peak come the beginning of the season and throughout the season. So all that running stuff has certainly changed for the better, I think. And then all the other old school values are still there. They're just implemented differently, and some of them aren't as relevant as what they used to be, and that's just the way of life is now. I think kids and younger people are more inquisitive and want to know reasons why, and you can't just dictate to them. You have to show them that you care and you're passionate to develop them and help them improve. So I think where gone are the days where it was a bit more head teachery as the manager. I remember days when we'd lost on the Monday and we were cleaning boots, all the young lads cleaning boots, and we were having a laugh and a joke, and the manager effing and blinding us, telling us what we're laughing about because we'd lost at the weekend. That doesn't happen anymore. It's a different place. But them old school values shouldn't be lost in it, and I think a lot of people are really aware of trying to make sure that the young pros that haven't quite made it yet make sure that they haven't made it yet, and that it takes a long time to establish yourself as a professional footballer.
No, mate, definitely. And kind of talking around, like, obviously, like I said, we played at such a young age. Was it? Who would you say? What's the first moment you kind of looked around at kind of 15, 16? When did you break into the first team at Cambridge? Was it within you before you were 20-year-old?
Yeah, so I was 17 when I broke into the first team at Cambridge United. We'd actually got relegated the year before, so we lost a lot of pros that year, and the youth setup kind of shut down, and they kept hold of a couple of apprentices. So there might have been 7 or 8 of us that they kept hold of and gave. I would have been a second-year scholar. They gave a first-year pro to, which was about £145 a week. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't a pro contract, that's for sure. And then it was a case of just, I was with them and waiting, travelling around. I remember going to a lot of games and not being in the squad. I remember travelling all the way to York, making the teas for everybody and not even being in the squad. Did
that bother you?
Pardon?
Did that bother you as a player? Because I think from a lot of people listening and watching, and even myself, you always sit there and think, is he okay with doing that? Because I think it's different personalities. But what was your kind of feeling towards the manager in that sense? Were you just like, it's just one of those things? Or?
Yeah, I was just, I think it was one of them where I was happy to be with the first team.
Yeah.
And at that time, whatever you asked me to do, I would have done. And I think that was the mindset, really. I felt privileged to be travelling to York. I look back now and go, I had to travel up there. But at the time, I was telling my friends and family, I'm travelling with the first team. So, it changes. It changes quickly. Once you start playing, you want to keep playing. So you're not happy about just travelling with the squad. So, and I got the opportunity and we did well. When I came in, I think we won one game, drew the next one, and then won again. And sometimes you have to be lucky with your timing of getting into the team, and I certainly was. We picked up a few results when I came in, and eventually Rob did get the sack. But he was somebody that had faith in me, Rob Newman that is, and he's somebody that had faith in me and gave me my first opportunity.
And from when you were in there, obviously, like you said, you were in the grand scheme of things, playing however many games you played in your first season at 17 and kind of getting in the squad. And then when was it you left and where did you go to after Cambridge? Obviously, being a local lad, and like you said, it's a big thing to do, especially centre-half. It's kind of, you make a mistake, you're out. And then...
Yeah, we played a 3, so it was slightly easier as a centre-half. There's a little bit more cover. And I was lucky there was people like Mark Peters and Andy Duncan and Mark Albrighton that had been around the game for a long time, and they really helped me in my position. So I ended up playing over 100 games at Cambridge, and I think went on trial a few places. Had a trial at Chelsea and Preston and Watford. Probably the biggest opportunity I had was at Newcastle. Was there for a week. They asked me to stay for another week, and I thought things were going to happen, and I was going to sign. I went in to see Glenn Roeder, and he said, you've done really, really well. We've been really impressed. But, I had Rio Ferdinand in my youth team at West Ham, and you're not quite as good as him, so we won't be signing you. And that's when it sort of clicks that, you're not just competing with the people that it's, you compete with one of the best centre-halves ever in the world. So, the fact that he even thought that I was going to be as good as him or comparing me to him, I suppose is a compliment. But I look back now and you have to laugh. So I missed out.
What's that feeling like?
I was gutted that time. I'd been on trial at other places and Everton as well. I think I'd been 4 or 5 different places for a few days.
What year was this?
2006 to 2007. So
big time in both clubs, really.
David Moyes was the manager. David Moyes was the manager at Everton. He'd just gone from Preston. At Newcastle, Glen Roeder had the job. I think Michael Owen was injured at the time. Had Luque up front. James Milner was there. I think Tim Krul. I remember being in the changing room with Tim Krul and Andy Carroll, and they were only young lads, hadn't even made their name. Yeah. So yeah, they were both massive clubs. Chelsea at the time, they were. Brendan Rodgers was the academy, the guy who took me for my training and that there, and I missed out on them. And over the 3 years I played at Cambridge, we had strikers that Alex Ravel, he'd left and gone. A few other people Robbie Simpson, he'd had a move from Cambridge to Coventry, and I sort of still hadn't left. And I was getting to that point of have I missed the boat? What haven't I done wrong? What have I done wrong? Why hasn't anyone done that? And then Nigel Pearson, who was a part of the coaching staff at Newcastle, got the Leicester City job. They were in League One at the time, and it was a bit of a whirlwind. I'd been told by my agent that they were interested, and I was going on holiday actually. So I went on holiday. Said, "Listen, I don't think you should go on holiday. I think things will progress." And I was like, "Listen, I've heard this before. I'm going to go on holiday." So I took the flight. I got off the flight, and my phone had blew up. I had loads of messages. Quick, fly back. The Leicester deal's been done. We want you to sign and come back and get everything done. So I hopped back on a plane, and straight away, as soon as the offer was accepted, I was always going to go to Leicester. It's such a big club. I walked around the changing rooms and the dressing room, and the level of what it was as a football club. It's gone even further now. It's amazing what they've done, but to play a little part in their history and be involved in the League One team that got promoted into the Championship, and then the following season we lost in the semi-finals of the playoffs there as well, was a brilliant time for me.
What's because that's one of the major things I want to talk about today is, first of all, is Nigel Pearson as scary as everyone seems he is? Acts like he is on TV.
Definitely not. When I was 21, I would have said yes, definitely. When I was a kid, he was my first manager in the Football League, and he had a real, not an arrogance, but a real air about him. You didn't cross him. You followed instructions, and the way he carried himself, that he did care for you, but you had to do things right. And I really enjoyed working under him. Actually, when he left, that coincided with my form dipping and me eventually leaving Leicester. But the way he set out his team and the values that he expected to every day for his players to perform at really helped me flourish. And I've only got good words for him. And then I was actually on a coaching course with him about a year ago, 18 months ago, and it was surreal to be able to call him Nigel. I was still calling him Gaffer. And I called him Nigel at one time, and he just looked at me and went, "It's Nigel to you." And he's a really nice guy. Really wants to help people. If you ask questions, he'll want to help and support people. And I know lots of other people that have gone into coaching and managing that have played under him have asked for his advice, and he's always been there to help people.
Would you say, because that's one of my things that I definitely talk about a lot with coaches and players that I coach on a one-to-one level at the moment, do you think that, I know obviously it's 50-50, but if you had to pick one of them, being technically brilliant like your Guardiolas, your Mourinhos, or kind of like you said, when Nigel left, you were feeling great when he was there, but as soon as he left, like you said, it's your dip in performances coincided with that. Do you think, what I'm saying is, a Pep manager or a Klopp manager, motivation, father figure, like you said, Nigel Pearson, like look at what he's done with Watford, or look what he did with Watford. Sorry,
I think when you look and you talk about somebody like Pep, for instance, you talk a lot about tactics, but there's always that underlying value of if you're going to be a player and you're going to beat teams, you've got to run harder than them, you've got to work harder than everybody else to be successful. And yes, there are tactics in there, and I suppose at the highest level, then tactics come into place a little bit more, and the skill level comes into place a little bit more. But certainly when you're talking about in the Championship, if you can work harder and be part of a group that aspirations and vision is all together rather than being independent and looking out for themselves, it makes a massive difference. And I think Nigel was really aware if he can get the team gelling and moving in one direction altogether for the team's prerogative, individuals will succeed and flourish from there. And, I don't think, I've watched a bit of the Mourinho stuff at Tottenham. I don't think he's any different. There is, tactics to be made and stuff, but it's also about making people feel good and going out there with confidence. And, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think sometimes you get caught talking about Pep's tactics, but, I'm sure he's motivating his players as much as he can as well.
Definitely. No, 100%. So you spoke about, obviously, when Nigel left and you were kind of dip in form. And was it, am I right, that you went to Sheffield Wednesday?
Yeah, so Paulo Sousa first got the job straight after we lost in the playoffs, and we ended up playing a little bit more football. We were a little bit more open. Training was less intense, was a little bit longer, slower, and yeah, I just found it difficult under him. Whether I was 21, 22, so you can have dips in form and different things going on in your life as well that can affect you. But certainly the confidence that Nigel had in me and him leaving and affected me. And then Sven come in and he signed a lot of players. Sven-Goran Eriksson came in, he recruited a lot and they spent a lot of money. And it was quite obvious that I wasn't going to get as many opportunities. So, I ended up signing for Sheffield Wednesday under Alan Irvine. And
did he tell you?
I actually went to see him. I had the call from my agent saying that, Sheffield Wednesday were interested and wanted to move on it. And I hadn't been playing. And then over the Christmas period, I ended up playing. So Sheffield Wednesday thought the deal might not come through, but I was quite aware that it was early in January. They were going to sign more players. So I went and saw Sven and said, listen, I've got this opportunity at Sheffield Wednesday. I want to take that if that's okay. And he was like, yep, no problems. That's fine. I don't want you to leave, but if your mind's made up. And in hindsight, maybe I could have cut it out and stayed to the end of the season at Leicester and seen what had happened. But, I'd always been playing since I was young at Cambridge. I'd been and played at Leicester and I didn't really see the opportunities carrying on. So, and I saw the chance at Sheffield Wednesday, very similar to what I'd just experienced at Leicester. Big club, come down. They were second or in the playoffs at the time. I'll go there, we'll get promoted, and I'll be in the Championship next season. So, as much as the league was a step down, I didn't see it as a step down within the football club or anything. It just sort of perfectly made sense to me that we'd go straight up with Sheffield Wednesday, and that was definitely not the case. I had a really a tough start. We signed a lot of players in that January period, and it didn't really work. And Alan got the sack within 3 weeks, and Gary Megson come in straight away. I wouldn't say I butted head personally with him, but as a manager, you make these decisions, and there was 5 or 6 people that he decided that no, they're not for me. I'm going to go a different way. And there was 5 or 6 of us that ended up training with the kids, and then ultimately, from I think it was April time, said, "Listen, don't bother coming in." And that was difficult. That was difficult, and it was a difficult time at Sheffield Wednesday because there's so much ambition there and expectation from the fans, and they were in League One, not winning every week, and it was a hard place to play at. And I'd never experienced that sort of. I'd experienced pressure at Leicester to do well, and we did do well. So when it wasn't working at Sheffield Wednesday, it was something new to me. And I was still young, and I thought, like I say, I thought we were just going to turn up and win every week. We've got the Clinton Morrison was up front, Chris Sedgwick was on the wing. We had some really good experienced professionals at the time, and it didn't work. And I wasn't for Gary, and I was soon left out. And fortunately, I'd played with Chris Powell at Leicester, and he'd got the Charlton job, and they were rebuilding off of the back of Carl Jenkinson being sold to Arsenal, and I ended up at Charlton, probably a better person, more focused on football and making sure that I felt like from being at Sheffield Wednesday to Charlton was going to be my last chance. If I didn't take it here, then your chances of staying in the game and being at a high level would have severely dropped. So I really wanted to make the most of the chance and the faith that Chris had given to me at Charlton, and he recruited so well there. We had such a good team. Ben Hamer played in goal. He ended up playing in the Premier League. We had Jan Kermigan, played in the Premier League. Johnny Jackson, Premier League. Bradley Wright Phillips was up front that year. We got promoted in League One. We had some real talent. Dale Stevens, centre midfield, plays for Brighton in the Premier League now. So to have that team at League One level, we romped that, and then we were unfortunate the following year. The ownership changed, and it still is messy at Charlton with the ownership and stuff. So it was a real opportunity missed there, because I think we were only a couple of players. I think we finished 9th the year that we got promoted into the first year in the Championship, and there was room for improvement, but ownership, and we didn't have the funds to go again and add players to the team, and ultimately that team disbanded.
Just to go back a little bit on Chef Wednesday, and you said about Gary Megson, and you see it a lot more nowadays with, I think you do see a lot more with a lot more foreign managers coming over when they haven't had much experience within the EFL or the Premiership, and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, you're not for me, and then you turn around and you're thinking, well, okay, I'm not for you. And then when he says go train with the kids, and like you said, you got to a stage where don't bother coming in. Do you think that's one of the worst things a coach can do? Obviously, I know you've got your UEFA A. Is that the case?
Yeah. I've done my coaching badge. I think it's a difficult one because as soon as you've decided, and as a manager, you have to make these decisions, and you live and die by them. And as soon as you've made that decision that these 5 or 6 players aren't going to be involved in your team, you need your group to be together. And you can't have people on the outside every day just niggling away, moaning, or, because you can't help but moan if you're not in the team and the manager's playing. So as a manager, your prerogative is the full group. And if that means shredding 5 or 6 players, then I can understand that from a manager's point of view. From a player's point of view, you're not there to train with 5 or 6 people. You want to play in the first team. You're a professional. You want to do your best and be playing on a Saturday, not sitting at home checking results. So it's one of the most difficult time. And, I won't pretend that I'm the only one that's ever done it. There's lots of players that have been successful at lots of different clubs that have ended up in similar situations. And, and you look at Gary's success at Sheffield Wednesday, there's a good argument that he was correct in what he was doing, because they went and got promoted. And that was his. Who
were the 5? Who else was with you that got?
Tommy Spur. Tommy Spur was with me, and he went on to play in the Championship for a lot longer. Mark Reynolds, he went back up to Aberdeen to play for the Scotland B team. So it was 3 or 4 of us, and then there was probably a couple that I've not mentioned.
Were there a couple? Would you say that the players that obviously at the time, obviously, I remember at Sheffield Wednesday, you had some big personalities there. I remember at the time. Did it ruffle their feathers a bit, would you say, or seeing the likes of yourself? And
I don't know. I think Gary just come in and decided, right, this is the route I'm going to go. He was very clear on what he was going to do, and I, like I say, he went and got the best out of the team that was left there, and I was one of the casualties, and that happens in football, and that will happen again to myself and to others, and managers, like I say, live and die by them decisions, and sometimes they get them right and sometimes they get them wrong, and it was probably the right decision to let me go, but I went on and did well at Charlton, so that experience for me made me more focused, more stronger about what I wanted to do, and make sure that I took my opportunity at Charlton. It refocused me a little bit more, I suppose, to listen, if you want to be a professional footballer and stay at that level, you need to do a lot more. And, the only reason why he didn't play me was because I hadn't been performing good enough at the end of the day. And at the time, I would argue that there was a lot of other people that weren't. But, as of being a new signing one of the new signings from the last manager, there's always that puts a question mark over your name as well.
No, definitely. So then we spoke about, you went down to Charlton. You guys obviously done so well. I remember it, 8th or 9th, you said, I think. And obviously the ownership is still obviously enough in the air as it is now. You then got the move to Birmingham. Am I correct?
Yeah, so I'd by this time there was a new owner. Chris had got the sack in January. Jose Riga.
What was Chris like?
Chris is brilliant. He's working with England now. I can see exactly why. He got a really good team together. Everybody bought into what he was doing. Very tactical in terms of trying to stop the opposition. And then we had a real good threat with Jan Kermorgant up front, and we played off him, and we used our strengths as a team. And his man management was really good. He made you feel brilliant. He really did get your arm around you, make you feel like that you were one of the best players in the league and one, really important to him in the team. And, I think most people that would have worked with him would say the same thing, even them ones that weren't quite in the team all the time. But he had real faith in me, and I'd played or he'd managed me since I was at Leicester. So I'd known him for 6-7 years at this point. Nearly half of my career had been spent with Chris. So I owe him a lot. He helped me as a player when he was a player, and then going forward, having the faith in me as a coach and a manager. So, I owe Chris a lot in my younger years there. And like I say, established a great team there. And he ended up leaving with the ownership. And I'd signed a new deal in the summer. New manager came in, and quite quickly he decided that he wanted to go a different route. They ended up signing Tal Ben-Aim and Andre Biquet, and they were going to be his first two. And I was on the bench. And then the Birmingham stuff come up. And it's always difficult when I was at Charlton before he come in, I'd literally played every game. I think I'd missed one or two home games of the whole 2.5 years that I was there before the new manager. Or 3 years. So once you step away from the team, and I was I was vice captain, it's a big role to be on the bench. And if the team's not doing well, a lot of the time, managers will want you out. If they're not going to use you, obviously if you're vice captain or you've been playing every week, you're a part of their budget that they might want to use in different areas. And it was quite clear. We had Joe Gomez coming through at the time as well. So it was another competition with centre half. And it was made clear to me that if something did happen, then I would be available. And then Birmingham popped up. And at the time I was a bit sceptical. They'd just lost 8-2 to Bournemouth, I think it was. And Gary Rout was going in, and I hadn't worked with Gary before, and my agent had said, listen, it's a great opportunity, go and play. Can't do any worse than the last two centre halves. It was the best thing I've ever done. I went there and we played Wolves. I signed on the Friday. We played Wolves on the Saturday, straight in the team, live on Sky, big derby. And we drew 0-0, which, considering we lost 8-2 the week before, was massive.
Not too bad.
And then we went and beat Watford on the Tuesday, who were doing really well at the time. And it just clicked. Gary had a period of 10-15 games where I think we might have lost 1 or 2, but we really moved up the table. It was a good team that was underestimated. He got us really organised. We had Clayton Donaldson up front, who ran the channels and was really aggressive. And I suppose we were a bit of a throwback in terms of our work rate and our ethos without the ball. And then we had some quality. We had Damari Gray, who was a real good ball carrier, and he's gone on to Leicester City. And David Kocher at the time played for Wales. And John Terrell, who's just gone back to Birmingham now. There's some real talent there, and probably a bit underestimated. And eventually Gary left under more ownership circumstances, which seems to be a pattern in my career. But
yeah, maybe it's you, mate, not everyone else.
Yeah.
What is that day like? Let's talk through that, just from obviously a lot of fans or hopefully a lot of fans will be listening to this and stuff. And what does it actually feel like? And did you get told? Did Gary tell you? I've been gone, or is it? Because I've had a lot of rumours, obviously, with a number. I think at the time when was it Nico Ziyech, the City? Yeah, he was, and I think he had a bit of a bust up with Carl Robinson before. And I know that a lot of players have said, so just talk us through, did you get told about that he was leaving? Or
Gary's was a real surprise. There wasn't really any.
You were doing good though, weren't you?
We were. We just beat Ipswich 2-1 on the Tuesday. So Wednesday we were in for a call down. The manager wasn't supposed to be in. It was just a sports science led call down, and we'd been told, listen, we've got to wait. It's the club want to speak to us. And I remember thinking at the time there was a lot of the stuff with the 80s and stuff like that going on. And I thought it was a meeting about that, just to talk about, listen, if this has happened, or a discussion about that from the football club, just talking about that subject to make sure everybody was aware of it and blah, blah, blah. And then they were saying, oh, no, the manager's coming in. And everyone was like, well, why is that happening? Anyway, Gary come in and said, listen, lads, that's me, I'm done. The owners told me that, or I've been told by the chief exec that, they want to go a different direction. And, that was it. There wasn't a deeper conversation. I spoke to Gary a little bit after, not that day, but later on. And I was captain at the time with Paul Robinson was club captain, and we were actually having our Christmas party with our wives and girlfriends that evening, and we went and met Panos and a few other people that were heading the football club up, chief executives and financial directors, and they were saying, listen, we've got rid of Gary, we want to play a different way, but don't worry, we've got Gianfranco Zola coming in and he's going to make the difference, and we're going to be at this and that. And that's not how it worked out. So that me and Paul went and had this meeting and had to relay that to the players over a few beers.
We had a couple of beers that night, yeah.
But yeah, that one was a strange one because you just didn't see it coming. It really caught you off guard, and it's difficult when people lose their jobs, but it can be even harder when the team's not ready for the manager to change, if that makes sense, or you feel like you're building something, and then that to get knocked down straight. We're in the playoffs at that point, and for that to get knocked down or damaged, and like it did, was really hard to take. And it ended up being, as a player, it's another year wasted, and when you get to a certain age, you look how many years you've got left and you think, well, that's another year wasted. That wasted that year because of that. And they're uncontrollables. You can't do anything about them. And yes, you enjoy playing for the football club, but you want to, we had a chance to be up and around the playoffs come the end of the season. And whether we would have or we wouldn't, we'll never know. But we certainly, under Gary, wouldn't have been looking over our shoulders needing to beat Bristol. I think that time it might not have been Bristol. Actually, it might have been somebody else. By the end of the season, we had to win to stay up, and that's not acceptable.
What I'm talking about, obviously, it didn't work out the way the club wanted it to with Zola and so forth as it's been now. But would you say Zola's the best player, ex-player, now manager that you've ever been coached by? Like, in terms of, has he still got it? Can he still whip on him?
Yeah, he did join in a little bit. Yeah, you could see, when he's talking about set pieces and that. Yeah, you could see he was obviously, an unbelievable player. Like, he kept himself in unbelievable condition. I think I only ever see him eat broccoli at lunch. That was the one thing that he was so fit, and he was like, because he's never eaten anything but vegetables. He was unbelievable in shape for how old he was. But obviously it didn't work out. It was a difficult job to come in mid-season and try and change a philosophy that had brought success and the players had bought into. And there was a few other different reasons, in terms of getting his message across that could have been better and whatnot. And I mean, I was injured for a lot of that period, and it was a hard time for me personally as well. So it was difficult end to that season.
And then after Zola's left, Redknapp, am I too early now?
I was injured still at that point. There was 3 games left, and Harry was like, we want to get you back. We want to get you back. The plan was that I wouldn't play that season. It was just, if we needed to, I might be able to play the last 2 games. And as it happened, they wanted me to, and I played against Huddersfield, which was a crazy game because they knew they were in the playoffs. They changed 6 or 7 players, and we missed the penalty. We had Shea Adams sent off, and we managed to beat them. I think it was 1 or 2-0, and we thought that was it. We'd stay up, and it wasn't enough. We had to go and play against Bristol City and beat them. And I remember at half-time, everybody was winning, and we were winning as well. So, we thought at least somebody's going to be losing. I think Blackburn were beating Brentford 4-3 or whatever at Brentford, and they ended up getting relegated, Blackburn. And the goalkeeper at Bristol was going up in the last minute, and I remember saying to people, "What are you lot doing? Like, you're safe. Why are you sending your goalkeeper up to try and get us relegated?" And it's always one of them, when you see people celebrating staying up, you always look at them like, well, why are they doing that? And until you're in that situation where it holds so much over your whole entire life for so long, for weeks on end, that that you're struggling and you just want to get enough points, it consumes you. So when you do get that win, it's such a sense of relief. It is euphoric. It is like winning, winning the league, I suppose. That's the only way I can describe it, is that relief of that's all been harnessed over weeks and probably the whole season, or certainly for us since Christmas for everybody. And it affects your life. So it is a mad feeling when you do stay up on the last day of the season.
Harry a hands-on manager on the training ground, or is he quite?
No, I really
Joe
liked
Jordan?
Harry. I had a lot of time for Harry. I felt that he really liked me, and he really gave me confidence. And he was somebody I really liked, and he was there every day. You know, he was always watching training, had clear ideas of how he wanted to play. He just wanted different players. He wanted Ashley Cole and Robbie Keane, and you know, he didn't get them players. And there was quite a to do with some of the recruitment and stuff. It wasn't all his players, and there was other people involved, and he probably didn't get the team that he felt that he'd been promised. And then he relied on, you know, fitness people who were qualified. He gave them a lot of free rein, and we probably could have been fitter that year. And the first thing when Steve Cottrell come in was it was over September international break. We ran the whole September international break to get fitter. I mean, that would be a typical thing for a manager to do, but Steve took it to extensive levels.
And how long was Steve?
It was unfortunate, and Harry got the sack and Steve come in, and Steve had worked with the club and worked with Harry, and I think everybody was quite excited about him getting the job. For he knows his stuff, and without being too harsh on Steve, he changed completely from assistant to manager. The pressure completely changed him.
And then he wasn't in that long until Gary took over then, was it?
He had the job until March time. Gary Monk got the job after him. I mean, Steve had some really good talent. There was some good talent there. We had Shay Adams, we had Jeremy Boga, who is on his way to Napoli, I think now, or might even go to Crystal Palace, you know, hell of a player. Shay Adams. I remember one time we played Aston Villa and I was on the bench because I was in and out of the team under Steve sometimes, and I looked around and we had Lucas Djukovic, Shay Adams, Hotter, you know, that, and might have even been Jeremy on the bench. You know, three players, two of them have gone to the Premier League, and Lucas has scored 15 goals the last 2 seasons. So, you know, you look at that and you go, well, something's wrong if you're not playing them people. What, you know, that's probably the reason why we're not winning these games, you know. And he was a tough person to work for, with Steve. So I think there was a real, you know, everybody was pleased when Gary had got the job. Somebody with real experience, who made it really easy and straightforward. And we picked up some really good results, and we stayed up. I think we beat Fulham on the last day. We didn't need to in the end, but we convincingly beat them. And there was some real confidence going into the next season that we had some talent. He knew how to manage it and organise it, and that we could move on. And we did. You know, we moved forward. Shay went and scored a load of goals the following season. So did Lucas. We had a good team, and we knew that we were under pressure in terms of the financial fair play, and we sort of created a bit of a siege mentality and togetherness that we didn't have the year before, and it made a big difference. And unfortunately, we got 10 points deducted, but I think we need to be proud of ourselves. When you look at Wigan, you know, how well they did last season. They had 12 and got relegated. You know, I think if we'd have had 12, well, we would have done. If we'd had 12, we would have been fine as well. So, you know, that's credit to the team and to how Gary organised us on, you know, okay, somebody else had recruited the players, but he hadn't had the players in that he wanted, and probably had to be a little bit more pragmatic in his approach. And he got the best out of a team that, you know, he got the best out of the team. And that is probably, you know, signs of a good manager, where you can adapt and use what tools you have to be successful.
Was it tough then? Upon me, obviously, I remember watching it as well, and it was good. I looked at it, and was like, that doesn't look like a Gary Monk team, but it was getting results. It was doing what you had to do. Was it then another shame when he obviously was let go? Obviously, the ownership at Birmingham and their direction, was that a tough one to take? Again?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that coincided with me leaving the football club, because I do think if Gary had kept his job, you know, I would have stayed, or I wouldn't have got caught up in that, because I was out of contract at that time as well. So, you know, it didn't help me personally with my contract negotiations as such. But yeah, I think everybody felt like, you know, including the fans, felt like it was an opportunity missed, where we got stability in the club moving in a forward direction again. And you hope that, right, we could add this and that and keep moving forward. You know, we knew we were going to lose Shay, but if you can replace him, or, you know, find another way as such, and use that money to increase your team, then we would be okay. And, it didn't turn out like that. In the end, there was a lot of change. Hotter, who was, the playmaker, captain left, Shea left, who was the goal scorer, and then the manager left. So, Birmingham had a lot of work to do in the summer last season, and they ended up staying up with, by the skin of their teeth. But I felt like that was another, when I look back at the Charlton situation, I thought it was another opportunity missed in my career where, and certainly with the Gary Rowett one as well, I think there was twice where I looked at the team at Birmingham and went, do you know what, if we could just add a couple more, we could definitely really push on. And that was one of them. The 4 or 5 years I was there, there was 2 times when I thought, this is a team that could go and be successful, and got hurt. It was the club kind of caused its own downfall as such. But there's other stuff that goes on behind the background that you don't quite know or don't quite hear about. And as players, you can be in the dark as much as fans.
So obviously, I think I was watching a podcast with you the other day, and you would have happily have stayed at Birmingham. Am I correct?
Yeah, I was well documented saying that, and that is the case. And they'd offered me a year contract. I played all season, and it was like, don't worry, we'll look out for you. You'll be fine. They're aware of, my family situation. I was having a new baby at that time, and I wanted security. And they offered me a year, and I'd played 42 games. I'd scored 7 goals. So there was nothing wrong with my fitness or my performance levels. And, I expected... You were
captain as well.
Yeah, I was captain. So, and I'd seen players come in on 3-5 year deals on a lot more money than what I'd got. I wasn't asking for millions of pounds. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't asking for anything that wasn't within parity or within reason. And, the negotiations were very black and white when I thought they were going to be really easy. Okay, we'll get this sorted, no problem. It was a take it or leave it offer. And, I chose, it was my decision to say no. And, and people say, oh, well, if you really like the club or you really love the club, then you'd have just signed. But, you've got to look out for your family, and you never know what's going to happen in football. And
definitely,
case in state, and with all this COVID and people out of contract now, if I'd have signed
it
at Birmingham now, people would have said, why didn't you take a 2-year deal somewhere else? So it validated, with all this. Not that you want any of this, but it did validate my decision to say, listen, I deserve or I need a longer contract than that.
Yeah, cool.
And managers, and they've since changed managers as well. And you never know, football's a game of opinion. So, when you are at that opportunity, you do have to look out for yourself a little bit and make sure that you've got security in what you're doing. But it was a shame. I had thought that I would finish my career at Birmingham, or certainly, I felt that I had
to the latter.
More years. I mean, this year I ended up playing 48 games at Reading. There's no reason why I couldn't have, if selected, played that many games at Birmingham. And as it happens, I've moved down to Reading. It's a very good club. Moving forward, like the facilities that they're building now, the training ground is unbelievable. That'll be ready in October, and the ground's brilliant. Unfortunately, can't have any fans in there at the moment, but. It's been in the Premier League. It's got all the infrastructure behind it. They recruited heavily last year with good quality. Lucas João is somebody that's very impressive and should be playing at a higher level. If you can get him to play and work hard every week and get him to understand that, he's a Premier League player, he just needs to make sure he's at it all the time. That, you've got a goal scorer there, George Puskas, another goal scorer, and Sam Baldock, who's, in his career knocked in a lot of goals as well. So there's a lot of goals in there. Yaku Mate has last season scored a lot of goals. So, we can be a really good team if we can all gel together and get behind the new plan of how to play and to affect other teams.
It moves on nicely to obviously talking about your time currently with Reading, and obviously I used to have a season ticket many years ago, back when I was a lot younger and stuff, and a local team of mine as well. And it, like you said, the infrastructure is there. Everything is there in place to definitely push on. What would you say has, obviously you've for a man that's been to a number of clubs, you do like a big club, don't you? You've been to a lot of big clubs, you Chef Wednesday and stuff. Do you think that obviously now being at the latter, well, I say latter, but you're an experienced pro, you could say, in terms of your age and stuff. Do you think that being at a club like Reading is definitely what keeps spurring you on each day to push yourself and everything like that?
Yeah, I want to play in the Championship for as long as I can and leave some sort of mark on the football club at Reading, and ultimately that would be getting promoted and pushing towards the playoffs. And I think every year you look at your side and you go, I think we could do it. And I look at the Reading team, and every time we turn into training, how brilliant the training ground is. We're on the new pitches already. Obviously there's some COVID stuff that's going on, and we're not in the building, but you can see if you can't focus yourself to work hard at these places, every day, then you shouldn't be a professional footballer, because there's somebody working so hard and they're not, they haven't got the same facilities, and that they'll soon come up and take your place. And, I really think there's a lot of talent in that team at Reading, and it's trying to get everybody's vision and everybody in line to buy into the greater good that will help individuals, progress in their career as well, and getting everybody on the same clear vision, fighting together. And, hopefully the new manager can do that. He's got a small amount of time to do that before the season starts. But, the talent, when I look at that, it's probably one of the most talented teams I've been involved in. And it's trying to get that to implement as a team and then everybody to work hard for each other and put the team before himself as much as possible to achieve something as a team and as individuals ultimately. Because, when you talk about football, it is a team sport, but there also is 11, 20 people wanting to play every week and to progress and do well for themselves, and trying to get that team ethos, it makes a massive difference. And, you look at other teams that have made the playoffs in previous years, and I don't think they're better talent-wise than what we've got. They've just been maybe more organised, maybe prepared to fight for each other a little bit more. And I think if we can do that at Reading and give ourselves a platform, we've certainly got match winners and people that can change the game without a doubt.
Definitely, mate. And just one more thing I say before I've got, we're going to do some spitfire questions to you about your career and stuff. What is it like? Obviously, like we said, you've played at a lot of very big clubs, and regardless what, obviously being at the Madstad like myself, and I've been to Hillsborough and I've been to a number of other big grounds that you've played at. What's it actually like playing for a club with a fan base or a stadium where, do you ever stand there sometimes even now and think, cool, we're rocking today?
Yeah, I think the games that would instantly go in my mind would be the Birmingham Aston Villa games. And when we played... And obviously, at the time when we played, and John Terry was playing for Aston Villa at the time as well. So, to walk out at St Andrews and it was buzzing, and they had the fire bits that come out on the side of the pitch. Sometimes, I don't know if you've seen them on the sky, and I'd never really noticed them. And it come out and it was so hot. And you just felt like you was going into this, place, or it was ready for this big fight, and you look around, you got John Terry that you're playing against, and that was an incredible experience, because when St Andrews is bouncing, they carry the team, and they probably suffered last season with not having them there, and they've been brilliant sticking with the team through bad times and good. It's a bit of a cliche to say that, but genuinely at Birmingham they do, and I think that's the game where I look at it and go, wow, I've been so lucky to participate and to be involved in that sort of football.
Amazing, mate. Just before we finish, I'm going to do a new thing that we're going to do now on the podcast. I'm going to do some quick fire questions with yourself, either one word or a couple of words or a sentence answer. And then, mate, we'll hopefully have some good answers from you. Not to put you on the spot like this.
Yeah, go on.
Okay. So, best goal you've ever scored?
I actually scored outside the area against Stevenage. We took a long throw and it bounced out. I don't think you'll be able to get it on. I think it was in League One at the time. I don't think you'll be able to get it on camera. And I chested it down and half volleyed it, and it somehow spearheaded into the corner. I think we won that game 3-1 or 4-1. But I scored outside the box. The only goal I've ever scored outside the box. So definitely that one.
Best game you've ever played?
I'd probably say the most enjoyable game was we won the league with Leicester City, and the night we got the trophy, we played Scunthorpe, and I scored 2 goals in that game. I haven't scored 2 goals in a game ever before, and then we lifted the trophy. All my family and friends were there, so that was probably my most enjoyable.
Best teammate you've ever played with?
I played with Andy King. He went on to win League One, the Championship, and the Premier League. He was when he got into the team at Leicester, he was a goal scorer in midfield, and he scored 10, 15 goals one year, and he was a real talent and somebody who's gone on and he's an absolute Leicester legend.
Best player you've ever played against and shared the pitch with?
Clint Dempsey, a random one because not many people think of him, but we were drawing with Fulham and in the cup, and he come on and he scored a hat-trick within half an hour. So I always remember him when everyone says, who's the best player. I was like, well, he made me look the most stupid. So.
And also, if there's one thing you could go back in your career and redo and do it differently, what would it be?
Oh.
If you could change anything.
Yeah, it's a tough one, that. I suppose I would have liked to have done better at Leicester the season that I left. I suppose that was a one where when Nigel left, I wish I'd got that right. I wish I'd done well because it's such a big club and disappointing to not show my best skills at the beginning of that season under Paulo Sousa.
Best crowd you've ever played in front of? I think I know the answer to this.
Yeah, that would be St Andrews. Yeah, that would be the one of the best games. Obviously playing against Villa, and then there was one night that when I first come in, Gary Rowett was the manager on a Tuesday night. We beat Watford. It was one of his first games. I remember Clayton scoring. I'd only just got there, and he scored, and you could hear the tilt, and then it went mad, and that's probably one of the the early memories of the crowd at St Andrews, and something that's always going to be special to me.
Amazing, mate. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I hope everyone listening has as well. I think it's been great to get a current, very high level player on the show. And yeah, mate, I hope you've enjoyed it. Everyone listening, I hope you've enjoyed listening to the main man at Reading at the moment himself. And yeah, a really, really good insight to a player and coaches that you've worked with, mate. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. See ya.
Cheers, pal. Bye-bye.